This is Plant-Based Briefing. What supplements support brain health and memory? By Drs. Ayesha and Dean Sherzai at thebraindocs.com. And I'm Marian Erickson. This is the Plant-Based Podcast where I curate, get permission, and narrate a variety of articles on plant-based and vegan topics in about 10 minutes or less every weekday. And I'm thrilled to have permission from the Sherzais to share their amazing content. So now let's get to today's Plant-Based Briefing. What supplements support brain health and memory? By Drs. Ayesha and Dean Sherzai at thebraindocs.com. Let's start by talking a little bit about supplements in general because it's important that we think of them in the right ways. Before reading on, you may be interested in the short video linked here of Ayesha explaining more about why people have vitamin B12 deficiency and why it's important to keep an eye on those levels. The core idea of supplementation is simple. The body, including the brain, needs many different nutrients to function at its best, so you directly provide whatever nutrients are in short supply. Even the cleanest and healthiest of diets will have nutritional gaps, and supplements can help fill those gaps. This idea makes perfect sense to most people. Another idea that makes perfect sense is packaging supplements in the form of pills or capsules because A, pills are consistent and precise, and B, they're easy to administer, especially compared to their alternatives. Just dispense the right number and down the hatch they go. Trouble is, what makes pills and capsules so smart and easy also makes them psychologically troublesome, especially nowadays when everyone knows that pharmaceuticals can do some amazing things. The less rational parts of our minds start to think that pills solve problems for us, that we swallow them and the rest happens like magic, and among many other potential issues, this is where we run into the placebo effect. Just to make sure everyone's on the same page, the placebo effect refers to the way that the brain can cause changes in the body simply because it thinks medicine has been administered. If you give someone in pain a sugar pill and tell them very seriously that it's a powerful painkiller, their pain levels will still go down, sometimes impressively, even though it's just a sugar pill. This is why placebo-controlled studies exist, to make sure that the substances in our pills do more than the simple act of taking those pills. But our bigger point here is that the simple act of taking supplements, i.e. swallowing those particular pills, is often burdened with heavy expectations. We need to start by relieving ourselves of the expectations that aren't helpful, particularly the falsehoods from which predators can profit. 3 important clarifications about supplementation for brain health. 1. We are only interested in supplementing what the brain actually needs and often has deficiencies of. We're not trying to give the brain exotic new substances to use. Returning to the core idea of supplementation, we're trying to give the brain what it has always needed but often struggles to get. 2. We're only interested in brain supplementation that actually makes a difference according to rigorous, trustworthy science. It's not enough for us to connect the dots between the brain needs XYZ and people don't get enough XYZ. If we're going to recommend supplementation of any kind, it's because we know with certainty that deficiencies have avoidable negative consequences. And 3, we are primarily interested in the long-term health of the brain, not any specific short-term results. This is not to say that supplementation won't cause any noticeable short-term improvement in cognition. Some people do notice a difference, but that's not our focus or our promise. Brain health is a long game. On that note, one more thing. You might have wondered about this new industry of nootropic supplements that are supposed to help your memory and focus and so forth. The problem is that none of those supplements have been through the kinds of placebo-controlled trials that can prove whether or not a substance actually does something. In other words, 99% of the claims you've heard about nootropic supplements are just marketing, and some, if not all, of the testimonials are people who have fallen victim to their own placebo effect. Having said all of that, and hopefully having calibrated everyone's expectations for brain supplementation, the rest of this should be relatively straightforward. We say so because there are only 2 kinds of supplements that we broadly recommend for brain health: omega-3 fatty acids and vitamin B12, and we'll spend the remainder of our time here talking about each of them. One more disclaimer, please consult with your primary care physician before you start taking any new supplements, particularly if you're taking other medications. Let's start with omega-3s. First of all, omega-3 fatty acids are natural candidates for supplementation because the body can't produce or synthesize them on its own, and because the natural sources of omega-3 fatty acids are not staple foods for a majority of people. Sure, you can find omega-3s in fish like salmon, tuna, trout, and anchovies, and in chia seeds, flax seeds, walnuts, soybeans, seaweed, and some dark leafy greens. But the average person is not eating enough of these foods if they're eating any at all. If you're going to supplement your omega-3 fatty acids, we would recommend an algae-derived supplement with at least 250 milligrams daily of DHA. We specify algae-derived because it's highly absorbable and because it's free of the toxins and pollutants like mercury that you can find in the fish used for fish oil. As for DHA, well, it's the most important omega-3 fatty acid for brain health, so let's talk a little bit more about it specifically. Why is DHA important for brain health? For starters, DHA is about 30% of the structural lipid in the brain's gray matter. In other words, it's a lot of what the brain is made of. DHA is integral to the health of our neurons and to the production of myelin, a fatty layer of insulation that surrounds nerve fibers and keeps them in good working order. Research has associated higher intake of omega-3s with larger total cerebral brain volume, which suggests a protective effect against brain aging, because yes, the brain often literally shrinks during aging and cognitive decline. But don't mistake this larger brain volume for inflammation, because omega-3s have also been shown to counteract inflammation. We have 2 massive comprehensive reviews on omega-3s published in remarkable peer-reviewed journals. If you'd like to go deeper into this research, you can see them linked here. All in all, DHA has been shown to lower your risk of cognitive decline and dementia, and it can potentially even delay the onset of Alzheimer's. But you have to be getting enough of it, and a lot of people aren't, and that's why we recommend supplementation. Now let's talk a little bit about vitamin B12. Once again, this is a natural candidate for supplementation because the body needs B12 for a variety of different functions, yet can't produce it on its own, and therefore has to get it from the outside world. As much as 41% of the American population is affected by vitamin B12 deficiency. A number of factors can contribute to B12 deficiency, such as medications, pre-existing conditions, and alcohol use, but diet is arguably the biggest factor, and this is true whether a person is plant-based, a lot of B12 comes from animal products, or just has poor quality nutrition overall. B12 levels in the brain decrease as we age, and left unchecked, this becomes a risk factor for cognitive decline, brain shrinkage, and everything else we're trying to avoid. Fortunately, it's easy for your doctor to check your B12 levels, and similarly easy to supplement your intake. One last important note, your body only absorbs a small percentage, call it 1 to 4%, of the B12 that you swallow in a supplement. That's why B12 supplements contain such high amounts compared to the daily value, and why we would suggest 500 micrograms of vitamin B12 per day, even though the body only needs about 2 to 3 micrograms. So if you're wondering where to start with brain health supplements, our advice is simple. Talk to your doctor and start with those 2, omega-3 fatty acids and vitamin B12. There's a third important vitamin, vitamin D, not mentioned here. Here's a short video of Ayesha explaining what it is and why it's important, linked here. You just listened to What Supplements Support Brain Health and Memory by Drs. Ayesha and Dean Sherzai at thebraindocs.com. And I'm your host, Marian Erickson. And if you're interested in other episodes about these supplements, check out the following that I'll link in the show notes. 632, Sources of Vitamin D, Everything You Need to Know by Rick Scott at switchforgood.org. 532, Vegans Should Consider Taking DHA Supplements by Dr. Michael Greger at nutritionfacts.org. 425, Avoiding Fish for 5 Years Before Pregnancy by Dr. Michael Greger at Nutrition Facts. 424, Omega-3 Fatty Acids and Plant-Based Diets by Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. 373 and 374, Healing Autoimmune Disease with Supermarket Foods by Dr. Brooke Goldner at nutritionstudies.org. And 253, Health Concerns About Fish by the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. So please share this episode with anyone who might benefit, and thanks for listening.